Now that we have discussed the importance of formulating a good clinical question, in this video we will discuss how to do so and the two types of clinical questions. Those two types are background and foreground questions. These two types of questions are like going from exploring a forest of trees or many interventions to focusing on a single tree or intervention. That's how you'll see your question going, from being very broad to being more focused. The first type of clinical question is a background question. These questions are usually done at the beginning when you're looking at a problem. They're general, they're wondering about something. What they should do for you is they should provide a general understanding of the topic that you're trying to address. It will give you not only a better understanding of the topic, but also provide you with possibilities of interventions that you can use to address the problem or issue. Below, you can see some examples of background questions. As you can see, these are very broad and they allow you to get a lot of information about a particular topic. These types of questions can be answered by accessing information or evidence in books, point-of-care tools, and other resources like databases, as well as hospital or unit resources. Once you have a clear understanding or a better understanding of the problem or topic from asking a background question, you then move to formulating a foreground question. You will notice that these are more specific questions that allow one to make an informed decision or take an informed action. In order to ask a good foreground question, you must have specific knowledge of the problem or condition, which is why the background question is so important. It will provide you with options and a greater understanding. As you can see from the examples, these questions are much more focused and tend to compare interventions in reference to a particular problem or condition. These are questions that are best answered by using the best available evidence, which is many times found in recent research findings, journal articles, conference proceedings, and other things like that. A well-formulated clinical question is key when it comes to the evidence. A good one provides no direction as to the outcome and should provide you with no way of having a biased search. You'll know it's not biased because your search, if your question is good, should be one that reveals literature or evidence that is positive, negative, and potentially neutral in reference to an intervention, therefore allowing you to make a more informed decision. The best way to formulate a clear clinical question is to use the PICO or PICO format. This format is key as it will be what guides your search. You'll notice it's broken up into several different pieces, with the P being the problem, patient, population, etc. The I being the intervention. The C being the comparison. So I want to highlight here that the comparison is what you're doing now and doesn't always appear when you're writing your question or doing a search because sometimes there is no comparison. But the comparison, when it's available, is what is going on now in your present situation. The O is your outcome. What is the outcome that you're wanting to explore? Occasionally you'll also have a T for time to manifest or see a result. It doesn't always exist, but when it's there, it's important that you include it because it will help you guide your search. The other two T's really are useful when it comes to doing your search. The type of question and type of study will help you to identify what type of question you're asking, which will then allow you to determine what types of studies best answer those questions. Now remember, when it comes to the PICO question, it is not your project, but it is what is going to guide your search. It's going to allow you to break apart your question and identify the key concepts or pieces that will allow you to find the evidence that best answers your question in the database and other resources. When it comes to constructing a PICO question, it is best at least initially to use a template to ensure that you write a clear, answerable question. You will notice that the template you see here has the questions all following a similar format. They only differ based on the type of question that's being asked. Each is useful and just allows you to have a better sense of what's important about your question and what the different pieces are. Understanding the type of question you are asking is not only important when picking the right template, but also will be useful when you do a search. As you can see from the chart, there are several types of clinical questions. Each clinical question is best answered using different types of evidence. Ideally, you would like a practice guideline or a meta-analysis or systematic review, but those don't exist for every type of question or every type of problem. So, understanding what the best type of evidence is going to be helpful as you move into the databases and are able to use the limits and filters for each to uncover the best evidence to answer your particular question, therefore allowing you to have a more focused and efficient search. Now, let's look at an example of taking a foreground question and plugging it into the PICO format. We'll use the pressure ulcer example from earlier when I was talking about the foreground questions and see how we can plug it into the PICO format. As you recall, the question was, in the inpatient setting, how does the use of continuous lateral rotation compared to mattress overlays affect the occurrence of pressure ulcers? So this will be pretty straightforward. The P, or the problem or patient, is going to be pressure ulcers. You could also put in P the inpatient setting because that may potentially be useful later on, but I've left it off here. Your I is going to be continuous lateral rotations compared with what is presently going on the unit, which is mattress overlays, with the exploration of what the effect of those are on the occurrence of pressure ulcers. Now, when it comes to the two T's, what you will notice is that this could potentially be looked at as a prevention question, or you could look at it as an intervention or therapy question. In either case, whichever one you choose, there are primary studies or best evidence that answers those questions, as you can see reflected in the chart. Now, let's look at an example where we'll identify the problem and then take that problem, formulate a background question, and then move that into being a foreground question where we will be able to place it into the PICO format. The problem we are going to use is in reference to the issues of catheter care in stroke patients. On your unit, you may notice that there is an increased number of UTIs in this population, and you may want to find a way to address these issues. So, what you would do is, in order to best answer a question like that, or to come up with the best intervention, you would need to ask a background question, such as, what is the best way to care for urinary catheters in patients with a stroke? Once you've stated this question, what you may notice is that you'll go into the resources and start to gain a better understanding, as well as talk with hospital individuals who may know more about this topic than you do. After referring to the various resources to answer your initial background question, what you may notice is that your question comes into greater focus. It's still a background question, but it's not nearly as narrow, or as broad as it was before. You may end up with a question similar to this one, which is, you may determine that the UTIs, as a result of this catheter care, actually is dealing with the removal of the catheter in patients with a stroke. And so you may end up with a different type of background question, such as, what is the best way to remove urinary catheters in patients with a stroke? After exploring your more narrow background question, you may discover a particular intervention that could help to solve the problem. This would allow you to move to being ready to construct a foreground question that then we can place into a PICO format. The potential foreground question may be something as what you see before you, which is, in stroke patients, identifying the population, how does clamping, the intervention, compared with a gravity drain, the comparison intervention, prior to removal of an indwelling urinary catheter, affect UTI rates and first void rates 12 hours after removal? As you can see here, we have the P, the I, the C, the O, which is the UTI and first void rates, as well as a T for time, being 12 hours after removal. The foreground question is one that can easily be placed into the PICO format, as you can see. From here, you'll be able to perform your search in an effective way as you have identified the important concepts or aspects of your question. So therefore, when you go into the databases, you'll have a clear plan and be able to combine various concepts to reveal the best evidence to make an informed decision to solve whatever problem or address whatever condition you have identified. In review, there are many aspects to asking a clear clinical question. First of those is identifying a problem that you can address through an evidence-based practice question. Those problems arise from hospital or unit goals, issues or events on your unit, to the current literature where you may find a different way of doing things that could lead to a potential evidence-based practice project. Once you've identified a problem, the first thing to do is to learn more about that problem by formulating a background question, which is a broad-based question that gives you some options and allows you to have a greater understanding of the topic. From there, you'll move to a foreground question, which is more focused and allows you to access the current literature in order to make the best decision possible to address a condition a patient has or to solve some particular problem that you have on a unit. The best way to ask a clear clinical question is to use the templates for the various types of foreground questions that can be asked so that you can easily break them in to the PICO format in order to access information in the databases and resources in an effective way.